Welcome back to Ben Talks Utah Hockey, coming at you with a post-game recap of the Florida Panthers taking on the Utah Hockey Club in the Delta Center on Wednesday, January 9th. So getting into it here, first period, we see Vejmelka in net for Utah and Bobrovsky in net for Florida. It was a back and forth start in the first period. Utah maintaining the majority of the possession of the puck throughout the early stages of the first. And then we see Florida take a penalty. Matthew Tkachuk, about 8 minutes in, he gets a stick up on Ian Cole's face in the crease. And then he gets called for that penalty. And then he kind of put Kesselring into the benches where he hit his head on one of the padded posts that's behind the bench, and he kind of falls to the ice awkwardly. It looks pretty bad, but Tkachuk didn't take an extra penalty there. They just get him for the 2 on the high stick. Kesselring came out of it okay, even though the initial hit looked pretty bad. He bounced back, and he played the rest of this game. So Utah was unable to capitalize on that power play, though, and they couldn't get much going. They did do a good job of not retaliating on that play and negating that man advantage that they received. The teams at this point in the first, they're still kind of feeling each other out through the rest of the period, with the Panthers kind of testing the waters with what they were going to be able to get away with and what the Utah Hockey Club would allow them to get away with. At this point of the game, though, Utah is still maintaining the possession of the puck, and Florida's being a little bit more physical and finishing their checks every time. They're absolutely killing the momentum for Utah, trying to come through the neutral zone and stifle their entry attempts. And kind of looked like to me that they were playing like a modernized version of the trap style defense and just trying to fill the neutral zone with as many bodies as they can and waiting to capitalize on an odd man rush if Utah made the mistake with a puck. And as we end the first period, I can feel a fight brewing in this one. You can just tell things are kind of getting testy out there. So at the end of the first, score 0-0. Shots are Florida with 6 and Utah with 5. Heading into the second, Utah takes a quick penalty for a high stick about 16 seconds into the second period. Barrett Hayton goes for the penalty, and this leads to a goal shortly thereafter from Florida on the power play. Sam Reinhart scores from Tkachuk and Barkov right in the slot on a pass from behind the net shortly after that power play started, and Florida goes up early in the second 1-0. And as this is all kind of going on, they had a good interview with Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Hockey Club, at the start of the period. And he was being really well spoken about Utah and getting the arena and the team to that point where NHL hockey can be played in Utah. And I think that it was a really positive step, and just it's been positive this entire season. But it's just been positive in the sense that the players and the staff, they feel like they have someone who backs them unconditionally and wants to see them have success and share in the success as well. And I don't think you see that from a lot of professional sports teams and owners, and at least these days. And it feels conventionally unconventional, and I kind of like it. So I think for Utah, no matter what happens, this is just a side note, but for Utah, no matter what happens this season, they're being set up for a bright future with the move from Arizona. So getting back to the game, though, through the midway point of the second, shots are even at 13 apiece. Florida's pressuring in the offensive zone and keeping the puck in that end and making it hard for Utah to get fresh players out on the ice. We saw a couple of like rough minutes for Utah. They're getting some guys stuck on the ice for longer than 2 minutes, and they looked pretty gassed. But both Vejmelka and Bobrovsky are being solid in the net for both teams so far, even though Vejmelka did give up that one goal on the power play. But Both the goaltenders look good up to this point, and at the end of the second, the Panthers remain up 1-0. Shots are Florida with 20 and Utah out shooting them that period with 21 total. So um, there wasn't a ton of space for either team on the ice up to this point, and only Florida capitalized so far. And yeah, that moves us into the third period where starting off early, Florida scores. It's Boquist on a snapshot, assisted by Verhage and Lundell. And that's coming in within the first 2 minutes of the third period, and that puts Florida up 2-0. After that, Verhage takes a penalty for Florida. Utah can't capitalize on that. And then later on, Florida takes another penalty. Mikkola, he knees Kevin Stenlund, and Stenlund was not too pleased with that. He retaliated, takes a roughing penalty, and then Greer from Florida, he gets involved and also goes to the box for a rough. And this does put Utah up one man on the power play. So it's a 5-on-4. And this one, you can tell that the game is just starting to turn a little bit to the ugly side as we move into the later stages of the third. And later, after this chaos, after that's all killed off, Sam Bennett takes another penalty. He slashes Kevin Stenlund, and a scrum ensues after the play. Nobody dropped the gloves, but it did feel like they were kind of giving it to their former teammate in Kevin Stenlund tonight. He was on the cup-winning team with Florida last season, and I saw on X that they gave Kevin his ring yesterday, last night, and he was dapping up all of his old teammates and everything, and you wonder if there's a little bit of psychological warfare going on there when you see that, but nonetheless, I did like to see that. It was cool to see him, open up his ring and just be, really, really ecstatic about it. But I do think there's a little bit of an element of psychological warfare, and it seemed like it worked tonight. They were really getting after Stenlund tonight. But getting back to that play, after that slash, Utah capitalizes almost immediately, and Logan Cooley puts one in from Keller and Sergachev. He gets his 11th of the season on the power play to cut the lead in half. And Utah was starting to show a little bit of momentum with about 6 minutes left in the game, but wondering here, is it going to be just a little bit too late, as we've seen in the past? Shots are 30-27 in favor of Florida, heading into 5 minutes left in regulation. Vejmelka, he gets pulled with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, and Florida scores on the empty net. It's Boquist, assisted by Forsling. Boquist gets his second goal of the night, putting Florida up 3-1. And Vejmelka gets pulled again with about a minute left in the game, and Florida scores again on the empty net. This time it's Luosterainen, and that completely ices the game with 20 seconds left. There was Liam O'Brien at the end of the game, after the game was over. He kind of gave a shot to one of the Florida players as he was skating by, and kind of a little bit of a scrum, but you can't do that. I mean, I love Liam O'Brien, but there's a time and a place for it, and Florida just got the best of Utah tonight. Final score being 4-1 after it's all said and done. 33 shots for Florida, 27 for Utah. Utah falling to 17, 16, and 7, while Florida goes to 25, 15, and 2. And it was a close game in the beginning stages of the game, and it just kind of got out of hand for Utah in the third, late in the third. Again, we just see the push just a little bit too late, and maybe not enough chances taken in the early stages of the game. It's kind of that fine balance of when do you take a chance? When does a defenseman pinch to hold that line and kind of keep the puck in and hopefully create a scoring chance. And Utah just wasn't generating much through the neutral zone and on their zone entries tonight. I noticed that they just were having a tough time getting anything established right after they got across the blue line. And if they did, it was usually on a chip and chase type play, um, which is the style of hockey that Florida plays as well. But yeah, Utah just can't get it done at home tonight. They continue their home loss streak, and they're 3-5-2 in their last 10 games and trending downward at this point. They're a full 10 points behind the Avalanche in the Central and 1 point behind the Blues, holding down that sixth place spot in the Central Division pretty firmly right now. They're definitely losing ground. Colorado did lose tonight. They got beat by Chicago. They did have a called up goaltender, so they didn't have their regular starting goaltender in Blackwood or Wedgwood tonight. But so that helps. That's a Central Division game that with Chicago sitting on the very bottom of the Central and Colorado in that playoff spot. It helps that Colorado doesn't get that extra 2 points on Utah tonight. But yeah, it's right now it's not looking great. I think there's still a chance, but I mean, these next 6 games at home, Utah's got to win 5 of them. They got to get 10 points, and they got to hope that those teams at the top don't keep winning as well. They got to hope that they kind of go on the schneid here. So we'll see what happens as we continue into this homestand. We got a back-to-back coming up here this weekend, and yeah, I mean, it's just it's a tough watch. Yeah, it's a tough watch lately. We got the Sharks coming up here on Friday night, and then Saturday on a back-to-back, the New York Islanders. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can get some revenge versus the Sharks here, as the Sharks have had their number this year, coming back late in both games. And yeah, what more can you really say at this point? It's just been kind of a frustrating stretch of games to watch recently. They did have that bright spot versus the Flames on the 2nd of January to bring in the new year with a win, but lost their next 2, including that game tonight. So we'll see where they go from here. I thought there were some guys that looked good for Utah tonight. They kind of finally stepped up their physical play there towards the end of the game, and it was kind of getting chippy. And I thought for sure someone was going to drop the gloves and go. There were a few missed calls, I thought, and I think for the NHL officials, refereeing is one of the toughest jobs, and especially in such a high stakes, fast paced game like NHL hockey. And when you're officiating a team like the Florida Panthers, I mean, like I said earlier, like they were testing the waters to see, like, okay, what are we going to get away with tonight? Little sticks here and there, like little jabs, little punches, little cross checks, and just finishing checks in general. And they were trying to see, okay, how's Utah going to respond? Their head coach was interviewed in the first period, and he's like, yeah, this is our first time playing in Utah, first time seeing Utah this year. So we're just finding, we're just going to have to figure out to find a way to hate these guys. And I mean, I can't really blame him. Like, if that's the attitude that you come into the game with, I mean, mentally, I think you've already won the battle there. And if that's the whole mindset of your team coming into, an away game, and, a team that you haven't seen yet on the season, I mean, seems like they were pretty mentally strong, and they kind of knew that they could just take it to Utah, and that's what they did tonight. Unfortunate to see that loss for Utah, but it is what it is. I'm sitting here in front of this microphone. It's 1:15 in the morning, and kind of just running out of things to say. at this point. There are a couple bright spots for Utah. Logan Cooley continues to be one of those. He had that power play goal tonight. He looks really good on the power play. He just kind of plants himself right there, right next to the net in the slot, and waits for the play to come to him or somebody to set him up. And Keller and Sergachev do that tonight. And I think Keller's been working really well with Logan Cooley there on that first power play unit. That forward group, they look really strong. They get 1 out of 4 tonight, I believe. Yeah, one. They go 1 for 4 on their power play, and the power play continues to be like the brightest spot for Utah. Just in this last recent stretch of games, they're able to capitalize at least once a night, it seems. And yeah, other than that, I don't know what else to say about this one. I'm kind of at a loss for words. But I do appreciate you joining me. We'll see you. We're going to come at you with a pre and a post on that Sharks game coming up here on Friday. And whenever you listen to this, it'll probably be in the morning for you, or on Thursday. But whenever you take a listen, like it, subscribe to the channel, and give me some feedback. Let me know what you're thinking as well. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. This is Ben Talks Utah Hockey. Peace out.